right, on to our second example of an applied problem. Again, please remember, you do not need to write the problem down as I have here. I've just written it down so you can see it. But you do not need to do that. That's way more work than you need to do. You just need to go from here on, just like I will. Okay? So, the area of a triangle is 16 centimeters squared. Find the height and base if its height is half the length of the base. So this is asking me to find how long the base is of this triangle and how high this triangle is. That's it. So let's draw our picture. We've got a triangle, and this is our height. So I'm going to say let h equal height. I'm assigning my variables. And this is our base. So I'm going to say let b equal the base. Okay? Now the other thing I'm going to need to know here, because it is telling me that the area of the triangle means I'm going to need the formula for area of a triangle. So stop this for just a minute, see if you can come up with what the area is, the formula for it, and then come back and see how you did. Okay, so area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. Let's think about that for just a moment. We all know that the area, or at least I hope we do, of a rectangle is length times width, with this being our length and this being our width. But if I cut this guy in half, now I've got a triangle here. And so my area is going to be half of that because I cut it in half. Make sense? So we've got our area, 1/2 base times height. Now, let's go back and read this a little bit. The area of a triangle is 16 centimeters squared. Find the height and base if its height, so we'll go h equals, is half the length of the base. So we can either do it as base divided by 2, or we could do it, this is just showing it another way, you could either divide, as I've done here, the base by 2, or you could multiply the base by 1/2. Multiplying by 1/2 is the same as dividing by 2, either way. Okay, so let's now put this into it. We've got our variables assigned. We've read through the whole thing. So 16 is area. Always leave the measurement off when you're doing calculations. Then remember to put it back in at the very end. And so 1/2 times our base and times our height. Okay, well, this is like over 1. Okay, so we've got 16 equals 1/2, excuse me, that's not what I wanted to do. 1 times b is b squared, that's the numerator, and 2 times 1 times 2 is 4. Now, whenever we have an equation, and we know that because this is an equal sign, whenever we have an equation, and it has a denominator in it, we always want to multiply by that denominator to get rid of the denominator, okay? And in our next unit, we will learn how to divide if we have more than one denominator, multiply. This is being divided, so the opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to multiply every term in the equation by whatever that denominator is. So we're going to call it our LCM, lowest common multiple, and we'll learn more about that in our next unit as well. And so 4 times 16 equals 4 times b squared divided by 4. Now, 4 times 16 is 64. If you aren't sure of that, just quick do it over here. 16 times 4, that's 24, 4 and 2, 6. Okay, and here I can cross cancel the 4's. So what I'm left with is b squared. Now this is an equation. I've got a squared term, and this guy is positive over here, so putting it into standard form. What's standard form? ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So in order to do this, I want to keep this guy positive, so I'm going to move this guy to the other side by subtracting him. So when 64 minus 64 is 0, and then I have b squared minus 64. Now I just need to factor. So rule number 1, is there a special factoring form? Excuse me, is there a greatest common factor? No, there's not. Rule number 2, is it a special factoring form? Well, we don't know yet. Let's start asking our questions. First question, is it a binomial? Yes, it is. So maybe it's a difference of squares. So then we want to see, is this sign a negative? Well, it is. So we continue asking our questions. Can I get an even square root of b squared? Well, that would be b. Then I need to see, can I get an even square root of 64? Well, that's 8. So this indeed is a difference of squares. So we would have b plus 8 and b minus 8. Now it's fully factored, and so I just set each of these equal to 0 and solve. So this is b equals negative 8 and b equals positive 8. Okay, again, measurements can never be negative, and we're looking for a measurement. How long is the base? How long is the height? So can't use this guy, but I can use this guy. So it says my base is 8. The actual question asks, find the height and the base. So I know the base. Now I need to use this formula to find the height. So we'll go height equals, base is 8. It was over 2, right? Excuse me. Over 2 is our formula. Let's go back and look just to be sure. So we've got height equals b over 2. So here we've got height equals b, here's b, over 2. So height equals 4. All right, let's check this. So we've got our triangle. We know our base is 8 and our height is 4. This guy right here. And we know that area of a triangle equals 1/2 base times height. And we know our triangle area is 16 centimeters, I believe. And so 1/2 times base times height. Okay. Well, this is like over 1, each of these. So I'm going to cross cancel this guy into the biggest one. So 2 can go into itself once and into 8 4 times. So I'm left with 1 times 4 times 4 is 16, and 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And so we don't put that in the denominator ever, except for when we're doing slope. We'll get to that later. So our answers are correct. So now we just need to write our final answer. I would say something like, the triangle is 4 centimeters high and 8 centimeters long. Or we could say something like, you don't need to put all these, just one sentence is fine. I'm just giving you some examples. Triangle is 4 centimeters high and its base is 8 centimeters long. There we go.